use that one. Carlos, thank you very much, and thank you for your longtime friendship, your just your absolute faithfulness to the profession of practicing medicine, being a great example of what the people of the Rio Grande Valley look to for their sons and daughters to be able to stay here, to practice, to make a difference, and today is an important day as we mark a milestone. We mark this very important day in Texas, a day when we made the commitment to change our medical system for the better. It was 10 years ago when, as Carlos shared with you, Texas doctors were faced with awful choices. Stop providing the critical services their patients desperately needed, shut down their practice altogether, or leave the state. It was a crisis that was precipitated by a system that fostered an unrelenting stream of lawsuits, just particularly in the Rio Grande Valley. Physicians were rare who had not been sued. There were outrageous awards that were given for, in some cases, nebulous damages. And as a result, you had medical malpractice rates that were soaring prohibitively high, or were, in some cases, just no longer available. Doctors either stopped providing medical care in critical high-risk specialties, or they ceased setting up practice in Texas. And particularly hit hard were these critically needed medical specialists and ER doctors. These were the most frequent targets of baseless lawsuits brought on by unscrupulous lawyers. And what it all meant was that Texans lost their access to health care. I'm sure every one of these medical professionals in here can share with you a heart-wrenching story of prior to 2003, when someone had an incredible event happen, and because the health care was rationed, particularly in this area along the Rio Grande. I mean, a female, a pregnant female, all too often had to travel miles and miles to be able to have access to an obstetrician. That story of the young person who had a closed head injury and had to travel for hours to see a neurosurgeon. I mean, today a mother has the confidence that if an event occurs to her child, that she's not going to have to see their future put in jeopardy because they're having to be transported for hours to get the wonderful healing hands of a physician, a neurosurgeon in the case of that one. And that's a powerful message, and it's one that I'm very proud to have been associated with. And I just Harlingen and McAllen and Brownsville, those areas of the state. I just can't imagine a more desperate feeling than having your loved one not being able to have access to the health care that they deserve. And the people of the state are who address this. And I give a great deal of credit. When we had that constitutional amendment elected, Carlos, this area of the state was one of the powerful ones that turned out in force. And it's because of men and women standing behind me and across this area of the state that understood, because it was impacting them as much as any place in the state. And it was a good day for Texas. And your senator, Eddie Lucio, he stood firm on this issue. Senator Robert Duncan from Lubbock, former House member Joe Nixon. I mean, all of those individuals need to have a tip of the hat, if you will, and a thank you after 10 years for the work that they did to stay disciplined, to be responsible. Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse. Phoebe, you're going to speak here in just a few minutes. And Texans for Lawsuit Reform. Dick Weekley and the work that he did. I will never quit singing the praises of those groups and those of you who it may not have been politically in your best interest, but you knew it was in the people's best interest. You knew it was in your patient's best interest. It was in the citizen's best interest. And you did what was right. You made a difference. Texas for Civil Justice League. Just citizens who were fed up with the rationing of health care. Since Proposition 2 passed 10 years ago, Texas has added more than 30,000 doctors. Significant gains in communities that had been traditionally medically underserved. Over 3,000 new medical licenses have been issued each year for the past 7 years. More than 3,500 in the last 2 fiscal years. And we also set a record for applications. Dr. Lee, you and I were talking about that the medical board needed additional funds to be able just to process all the people who had applied. More than 4,600 applications in fiscal year 2013. I'm just continually surprised that some people still want to argue that tort reform didn't work when the facts and the figures are just overwhelming. They are swimming upstream against a flood of facts and data that prove otherwise. But more important than those numbers, and those numbers I think they're indisputable, but more importantly, it's in the minds and the hearts of people across Texas who know that because of the work that you did, that their families are safer, that they have access to some of the finest health care in the country. And I will suggest to you that tort reform not only impacted the access to health care, it also jump-started the economy in this state that has now produced 3 out of every 10 new jobs created in the United States in the last 10 years. That's a fact that's pretty hard to quibble with. The reforms that we passed a decade ago will also make it more likely that doctors who graduate from the new medical school that has been formed in South Texas will be able to stay close to home. So finally, having a growing and a thriving medical community in our state increases the quantity and the quality of medical research. That is an industry sector that has extraordinary potential to cure diseases, to treat ailments, and to power our economy for decades to come. The best thing that we can say about tort reform in Texas is almost the most basic thing. It's made people's lives better. And I think if there's one issue that we look back on, there's one thing that we get our arms around as citizens of this state, is that we came together, disparate people who had a lot of different views about a lot of different things, but when it comes to the issue of taking care of our citizens, we came together, we worked together, and we made a difference. And I wanted to come today to not only celebrate with you, but to tell you thank you. Thank you for being at the epicenter of the fight, but thank you for picking up the mantle and marching forward and being in a glorious and successful victory for the people of the state of Texas. God bless you, and thank you for that.